Hello, everyone. It is Ms. T with Ms. T's Cozy Corner, and I am here. I thought I would read Robinson Crusoe, chapter 4, 5. I don't know if I'll do the whole hour. We'll see how far we get. Maybe it'll get more interesting. Who knows? When you come on, please tell me where you're from. eh, where are you from? Where you watching from? And just say hi, okay? So, I still have my cough, but let's go. Chapter 4, and it is called First Weeks on the Island. Weeks? I think it would be days, don't you? Okay, so let's go. First weeks on the island. Let me make this just a little bit bigger so I can see with my old eyes. Here we go. Well, uh-oh. I was in the wrong spot. Oh, no. That's chapter. Here we go. When I waked, it was broad day, the weather clear, and the storm abated, so the sea did not rage and swell as before. But that which surprised me most was that the ship was lifted off in the night from the sand where she lay by the swelling of the tide, and was driven up almost as far as the rock, which I at first mentioned, where I had been so bruised by the wave dashing me against it. This being within about a mile from the shore where I was, and the ship seeming to stand upright still, I wished myself on board, that at least I might have some necessary things for my use. When I came down from my apartment in the tree, his apartment in the tree, I looked about me again, and the first thing I found was the boat, which lay, as the wind and the sea had tossed her up, upon the land about 2 miles on my right hand. I walked as far as I could upon the shore to have got to her, but found a neck or inlet of water between me and the boat, which was about half a mile broad. So I came back for the present, being more intent upon getting down the ship, where I hoped to find something for my present subsistence. Subsistence, that means so I can have something to eat. A little after noon, I found the sea very calm, and the tide ebbed so far out that I could come within a quarter of a mile of the ship. And here I found a fresh renewing of my grief, for I saw evidently that if we had kept on board, we had all been safe. That is to say, we had all got safe on shore. I had not been so miserable as to be left entirely destitute of all comfort and company as I now was. This forced tears to my eyes again, but as there was little relief in that, I resolved, if possible, to get to the ship. So I pulled off my clothes, for the weather was hot to extremity, and took the water. But when I came to the ship, my difficulty was still greater to know how to get on board, for as she lay aground and high out of water, there was nothing within my reach to lay hold of. I swam round her twice, and the second time I spied a small piece of rope, which I wondered I did not see at first, hung down by the forechain so low that with great difficulty I got hold of it, and by the help of that rope I got up into oop, I got up into the forecastle of the ship. Here I found that the ship was bulged and had a great deal of water in her hold, but that she lay so on the side of the bank of hard sand, or rather earth, that her stern lay lifted up upon the bank and her head low, almost to the water. So she's kind of like this. By this means, all her quarter was free, and all that was in that part was dry. For you may be sure my first work was to search and to see what was spoiled and what was free. And first I found that all the ship's provisions were dry and untouched by the water, and being very well disposed to eat, I went to the bread room and filled my pockets with biscuit and ate it as I went about other things, for I had no time to lose. I also found some rum in the great cabin, of which I took a large dram, and which I had indeed need enough to spirit me for what was before me. Now I wanted nothing but a boat to furnish myself with many things which I foresaw would be very necessary to me. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I can make sure that I see you guys. See if anybody's there in the chat room. Nobody there yet, so that's okay. And here we go. It was in vain to sit still and wish for what was not to be had, and this extremely. Now what happened? Now it moved on me. Hang on just a second. Now where did it go? Oh my goodness. This is crazy, guys. Now what chapter am I on? Oh my word. I lost it. Hang on. Here, maybe it'll work faster this way. Yeah, that worked. You'd think that I'd never done this before. So, what do you think? First of all, he's looking for something to eat, which makes pretty much sense. And the ship is dry, or so we think it is. I love that he calls his tree his apartment. Okay, so very necessary to me. It was all in vain to sit still and wish for what was not to be had, and this extremely roused my application. We had several spare yards and two or three large spars of wood and a spare topmast or two in the ship. I resolved to fall to work with these, and I flung as many of them overboard as I could manage for their weight, trying every one with a rope. Oh, tying every one with a rope, that they might not drive away. When this was done, I went down the ship's side, and pulling them to me, I tied four of them together at both ends as well as I could, from the form of a raft. Oh, in the form of a raft, and laying two or three short pieces of plank upon them crosswise. I found I could walk upon it very well, but that it was not able to bear any great weight, the pieces being too light. So I went to work with a carpenter's saw. I cut a spare topmast into three lengths and added them to my raft with a great deal of labor and pains. But the hope of furnishing myself with necessaries encouraged me to go beyond what I should have been able to have done upon another occasion. My raft was now strong enough to bear any reasonable weight. My next care was to load it. What to load it with, and how to preserve what I had laid upon it from the surf of the sea. But I was not long considering this. I first laid all the planks or boards upon it that I could get, and having considered well What I most wanted, I got three of the seamen's chests, which I had broken open, and emptied and lowered them down upon my raft. The first of these I filled with provisions, vis-a-vis bread, rice, three Dutch cheeses, 5 pieces of dried goat's flesh, which we lived much upon, and a little remainder of European corn. European corn, which had been laid by for some fowls which we brought to sea with us. But the fowls were killed. There had been some barley and wheat together, but to my great disappointment I found afterwards that the rats had eaten or spoiled it all. As for liquors, I found several cases of bottles belonging to our skipper, there I uh, in which were some cordial waters, and in all about 5 or 6 gallons of rack. These I stowed by themselves, there being no need to put them into the chest, nor any room for them. While I was doing this, I found the tide begin to flow, though very calm, and I had the mortification to see my coat, shirt, and waistcoat, which I had left on the shore upon the sand, swim away. As for my breeches, which were only linen and open kneed, I swam on board in them, and my stockings. However, this set me on rummaging for clothes, of which I found enough, but no more than I wanted for present use, for I had other things with which my eye was more upon, as at first tools to work with on shore, and it was after long searching that I found out the carpenter's chest, which was indeed a very useful prize to me, and much more valuable than a shipload of gold would have been at that time. I got it down to my raft, whole as it was, without losing time to look into it, for I knew in general what it contained. My next care was for some ammunition and arms. There were 2 very good fowling pieces in the great cabin, and 2 pistols. These I secured first with some powder horns and a small bag of shot, and 2 old rusty swords. I knew there were 3 barrels of powder in the ship, but I knew not where our gunner had stowed them. But with much search I found them, 2 of them dry and good. The third laid taken water. Those 2 I got to my raft with the arms, and now I thought myself pretty well freighted, and began to think how I should get to shore with them, having neither sail or nor rudder, and the least capful of wind would have overset all my navigation. I had three encouragements. First, a smooth, calm sea. Secondly, the tide rising and setting into the shore. Thirdly, what little wind there was blew me toward the land, and thus, having found 2 or 3 broken oars belonging to the boat, and besides the tools which were in the chest, I found 2 saws, an axe, and a hammer with the cargo I put to sea. For a mile or thereabouts my raft went very well, but only that I found it drive a little distant from one place where I'd landed before, by which I perceived that there was some indraft of the water, and consequently I hoped to find some creek or river there, which I might make use of as a port to get to land with my cargo. As I imagined it was, so it was. There appeared before me a little opening of the land, and I found a strong current of the tide set into it. So I guided my raft as well as I could to keep in the middle of the stream. But here I had like to have suffered a second shipwreck, which, if I had, I think verily would have broken my heart, for knowing nothing of the coast, my raft ran aground at one end of it upon a shoal, and not being aground on the other end, it wanted but little that all my cargo had slipped off towards the end that was afloat, and so fallen into the water. I did my utmost by setting my back against the chests to keep them in their places, but could not, thrust off the raft with all my strength. Neither durst I stir from the posture I was in, but holding up the chest with all my might, I stood in that manner near half an hour, in which time the rising of the water brought me a little more upon a level, and a little after, the water still rising, my raft floated again, and I thrust her off with the oar I had into the channel, and then driving up higher, I at length found myself in the mouth of a little river with land on both sides and a strong current of tide running up. I looked on both sides for a proper place to get to shore, for I was not willing to be driven too high up the river, hoping in time to see some ships at sea, and therefore resolved to place myself as near the coast as I could. And I think I'm going to stop there for today. Not bad. He's actually done very well. I'm kind of proud of Robinson. He has provided himself with ammunition and guns. So if anything happens, he's got a way to defend himself. Of course, he took all the food there was, which makes perfect sense. I would have done the same thing. Of course, you would have too. And then he has made sure that he has wood and carpenter's tools and things with which to build something on the island. Plus, his little rivulet that he found is going to help him get in and out while he's there. So, I have to say, Robinson has done very well for himself at this point. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his peace.